Do I have autism? Okay, in this video, I'm going to share with you how to know if you have autism. All that coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to TheAspieWorld. My name is Dan. I have autism, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia, and I make weekly videos on this type of content. So if you're new around here and you'd like to learn more, remember to hit that subscribe button by clicking the notification bell. And if you're watching over on Facebook, be sure to give this page a like and a follow to see weekly videos just like this one every week. Alright guys, how's it going, Thinking Differently fam? Before we go any further, I always like to ask if you want to get me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok and Facebook, make sure you go and like me on those social media platforms. I love engaging with you guys, talking, DMing you, writing back to comments, all that jazz, retweeting, etc, etc. So please go and follow me on those socials. I always talk to people, so reach out to me anytime. I love it. And you're always part of the Thinking Differently fam. We're thinking differently outside the box. I love it. So then, different thinkers, today's video is very interesting. I'm talking about how to know if you have autism, because a lot of people think, do I have autism? You know, how does it work? How will I know? Well, I've kind of listed out three main things to think about if you're thinking, do I have autism? Because let's face it, you don't just magically wake up one day and somebody says, oh, here you go, here's an autism diagnosis. You know, it's a gradual process. Maybe it happens when you're a child and your parents realize from a young age that there's some things that are a bit unique about you, and then you're a different thinker, just like the rest of the fam on here. Love you. Give this video a thumbs up if you think differently. I know you do, so let's see them thumbs up. And it's kind of like that is one way you could see it in somebody, and then they get a diagnosis early, but then sometimes it's left later on. Like in my life, I wasn't diagnosed until I was like 26, and then but even at that point you think, well, how do I even know? Because to you, if you're an autistic person, or the person you know is autistic, to them and to you, your life is fine. You do your things. People are just odd. Like I certainly remember this question coming up. They said, well, how do you feel day to day? I said, well, I feel like I'm absolutely fine, and everybody else is a little bit weird, to be totally honest with you. And I feel like that as well. I feel like quite a disconnect to most people that I meet in the world. It's very rare that I meet people that I really connect with, but when I do connect with them, they probably end up becoming my friends, and they're probably all on the spectrum, and I think they all are on the spectrum, so that's kind of cool. So I decided that I would make this video for you guys, because 1 in 100 people in the UK have an autism spectrum disorder, and 1 in 60 people in the USA have an autism spectrum disorder, which is a large portion of people. And it's interesting to know where am I on the autism spectrum? Maybe you're watching this video and thinking, hey, do I have autism? I want to know, Dan, so let's get on with it. Right then. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is common signs. Now, there are a variant of common signs associated with autism. And what I mean by super common signs is things like difficulty with eye contact. People on the autism spectrum have issues making eye contact, direct eye contact, maintaining eye contact, knowing when's enough or when's a little eye contact to make. All of that is relatively a common characteristic to somebody who is autistic. Another common sign is difficulty in social situations, dealing with social interaction, social gestures, people talking to you, people knowing how far away to stand from somebody, knowing when to talk, knowing when to stop talking, knowing when it's your turn to talk. I mean, these things are all unwritten social rules and social conventions that we just pick up as we go through life, but people on the autism spectrum typically don't pick up on these things because it's how the brain works. I mean, you got to remember, autism is a communication issue, and it's a developmental neurological disorder. So it's how the neurological paths fuse together when you were being created, when you were conceived, and that is the magic, really, of how it all comes together, because it's all to do with genetics and stuff like that. But in terms of neurological kind of side of things, yeah, social interactions and communication is all something that you should learn when the world seems a bit more clear to you. But people on the autism spectrum see the world quite differently, so they're occupied trying to figure out this world, let alone the conversations everybody's having, how to talk to people and social etiquette and all that jazz. So that's really interesting. Now, another common characteristic or a common sign of autism is strict and rigid routines, like getting up, every day at the same time, going upstairs, eating the same thing for breakfast, sitting in the same chair, going to the same job, doing the same thing, doing all those things in order, not moving from that strict routine. And if something does change in that strict routine, it's very difficult to deal with, and it's very hard to comprehend. That is, in essence, a very common characteristic of autism. So if you're aligning with all this stuff now, like, yeah, I did a video on a step-by-step guide on how to get an autism diagnosis, so I highly recommend watching that video after this one. I will leave it in a pinned comment and in the description below, and I will also put it on the end screen, so once you finish watching this one, you can go over and watch that one, and then you'll know how to go about getting a diagnosis if this is all sounding a little bit too familiar. But don't worry, we're all about thinking differently here. Different thinkers is our goal, thinking outside the box, because you're awesome. Okay, number 2, to figure out kind of like, you know, do I have autism? One of the best ways to do it is to do an AQ test online. Now, AQ test stands for Autism Quotient, and an Autism Quotient test is basically like an IQ test, but specifically for autism, to see if a person is resonating with characteristics of an autism spectrum disorder. Now, I have linked that test in the description below, so all you have to do is scroll down, look at number 2, AQ test, and click that link, and then you can take that test, and it's really cool. More on that in the other video, which I've told you to watch after this one, which is the, you know, a step-by-step guide of getting an autism diagnosis. But the AQ test is fascinating because I found this really interesting. I did the AQ test before actually having an official diagnosis, and it came back that I was, you know, quite highly on the autism spectrum. And then when I did my full official assessment, actually one of the things that we did was this AQ test in the official assessment, which I found quite interesting, because not only was I already familiar with this test and it wasn't so scary, I just knew that it was a really good indicator to do it myself online at home, because it's kind of what the professionals use. Okay, maybe it's not as crude as the one we use online, but it's very, very similar, and it's almost, you know, it aligns very much the same. I don't know how the scoring works in the official assessment because I'm not an official assessor, but it's very similar, and I highly recommend checking that out because it gives you a good indication and a roundabout way to think, hey, I'm actually, yeah, you know, this does say that I'm pretty much on the autism spectrum. It's very good. I've used it. I did a video all about it, but I talk about it more in the video of, you know, the step-by-step guide of getting an autism diagnosis, which you should totally check out. Okay, so number 3 is the professional assessment. Now, anybody who's thinking, hey, I might be on the autism spectrum, you know, do I have autism, you know, or does this person have autism? Why not book an official assessment? Go to an official professional autism assessment diagnostic process, because that is the only way that you'll eventually figure out if you're officially, you know, diagnosed with a condition. Now, the interesting thing about this is that not only will you know if you're on the autism spectrum, so you know, hey, I'm on the autism spectrum and this is what it is, and this is the therapy and the help that they recommend, and this is how I access that help. It will also do the adverse as well. Like, if you are not on the autism spectrum, it will highlight areas that maybe it's ADHD, maybe it's ADD, maybe you've got personality disorder, maybe you've got bipolar disorder, maybe you've got social anxiety disorder. There is a whole host of things that it could be also. So having a test like a professional autism assessment will give you some really key indicator of where you are on the spectrum or what condition you actually have, so you know how to treat it effectively. And I highly recommend using a professional assessment. Again, I talk all about this in the video that I will leave on the end screen, because it's very important that you kind of do it the right way, because a lot of people get confused. They don't know how to go about getting an autism diagnosis if they feel like they are on the autism spectrum, and if this stuff resonates with them, then I highly recommend doing that, you know, because it's pretty much a no-brainer. It could take a while. I know in the UK it takes about 2 years at the moment to get one on the NHS, but you can always pay privately or go to a different clinic, or maybe you don't live in the UK and it may be a little bit faster. Or I know that certain parts of the UK, like Wales and Scotland and Ireland, may have different processes and different companies that could get you a diagnosis easier, quicker, faster, with a bit of ease. Now, if you have anything to add to this video, pop it in a comment down below. I read and respond to every single one. Give the video a thumbs up if you're a different thinker, and I'll see you next time, guys.